Welcome, dear wanderers of the shadowed paths, to another descent into the abyss on Throne of Nightmares. I am your guide through the veils of forgotten terrors, the one who whispers the names that time itself dares not recall. Tonight, we gather in the dim glow of your screens, where the veil between the living and the lost thins to a razor's edge. Imagine, if you will, the chill of autumn fog curling around your ankles, the kind that seeps into your bones and lingers long after the dawn. That's the air we breathe here on Hollow Street, a name that echoes like a curse in the annals of the unseen. Hollow Street. Say it aloud, and feel the weight of it on your tongue. Not just any forgotten lane in some sleepy town, but a scar etched into the earth, a place where the ordinary unravels into the obscene. Nestled in the crook of whispering pines, a hamlet in the fog-shrouded hills of northern Vermont, Hollow Street was once a beacon of mundane prosperity. 6 stately homes lined its cobblestone path, each a testament to lives woven from the threads of hard work and hidden sins. The Millers, with their brood of wide-eyed children, the Hargroves, guardians of ancient ledgers, the Whitmans, whose laughter once masked deeper sorrows, the Lanes, whispers of old money and older grudges, the Pattersons, reclusive artists painting nightmares into canvas, and the Eversons, the last to arrive, bearing secrets from distant shores. But on a night much like this one, September 22nd, 1953, these 6 families vanished, not in a blaze of fire or a storm's fury, but in silence. Their home stood untouched, doors ajar as if inviting the wind inside, dinner plates still warm on tables, candles flickering in windows like eyes watching from the void. No screams pierced the night, no footsteps fled into the woods. Just absence, an emptiness so profound it swallowed the very souls who once dwelled there. Picture it. The first rays of dawn creeping over the hills, casting long shadows that seemed to cling a little too tightly to the eaves. Old Man Harlan, the town's reclusive postman, was the first to notice, his bicycle wheels crunching over fallen leaves as he approached Hollow Street, expecting the usual chorus of morning greetings. Instead, silence. A dog howled in the distance, but even that sounded muffled, as if the air itself absorbed sound. He knocked on the Miller door, once, twice. It swung open on oiled hinges, revealing a parlor frozen in time. A child's toy train lay derailed on the rug, its engine still humming faintly. Coffee steamed in mugs untouched, and on the wall, a clock ticked backward, its hands defying the march of hours. Word spread like wildfire through dry brush. The sheriff arrived, his badge glinting under a sun that felt unnaturally cold. Searches yielded nothing, no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle beyond a few overturned chairs and scattered papers. Whispers began, had they fled some unspoken depth, or was it something older, a grudge from the earth itself? Neighbors recalled strange occurrences in the weeks prior. Lights flickering at odd hours, shadows that moved against the wind, and a low hum emanating from the ground beneath Hollow Street, like the groan of buried secrets stirring awake. But this is no mere ghost story, my listeners. This is the enigma of Hollow Street, where 6 families, 30 souls in total, slipped through the cracks of reality. Mothers, fathers, children, elders, all gone, leaving behind only echoes. And as we delve deeper, you'll feel it, the pull of the unknown, tugging at your curiosity like fingers from the grave. Why these families? What bound them in life, and what claimed them in death? Was it a curse woven from the town's founding sins, or something far more insidious, a hunger that lurks in the hollows of human connection? As the fog thickens around us, let me paint the scene more vividly. Whispering Pines, founded in 1789 amid the revolutionary fervor, was built on land wrested from indigenous tribes through treaties soaked in blood. The street itself, Hollow Street, earned its name from the peculiar dip in the terrain, a natural basin where rainwater pooled and never quite drained, forming mirrors that reflected twisted skies. The homes were Victorian relics, their gables sharp as witches' hats, windows like watchful eyes. Each family had roots tracing back generations, intertwined like vines choking an ancient oak. The Millers were the heart of the street, their home a hub of community gatherings, Elias Miller, a stern mill owner, ruled with a fist wrapped in piety. His wife, Abigail, whispered prayers over cradles, her eyes shadowed by unspoken losses. Their 4 children played in the yards, oblivious to the gathering storm. Next door, the Hargroves kept the town's records, their attic stuffed with yellow documents that chronicled every birth, death, and scandal. Theodore Hargrove, bespectacled and bent, often spoke of the weight of history, as if the papers themselves pressed down on his soul. The Whitmans brought levity, or so it seemed, musicians whose melodies floated on evening breezes. But behind closed doors, arguments raged like tempests, fueled by jealousy and unfulfilled dreams. The lane's wealthiest of the lot hoarded artifacts from far, flung travels, Egyptian scarabs, Celtic runes, items that hummed with latent power. Matilda Lane, the matriarch, collected them obsessively, claiming they warded off the old ones. The Pattersons lived in isolation, their windows curtained, canvases smeared with grotesque visions. Elias Patterson painted scenes of hollow-eyed figures emerging from the earth, dismissing them as mere fancy, and the Eversons, newcomers from across the Atlantic, brought with them trunks heavy with locked diaries and faded photographs of crumbling estates. Victor Everson spoke little, but his gaze held the depth of ocean's hiding shipwrecks. These were the players in our tragedy, bound by proximity and something more, a shared whisper, perhaps of a legacy they dared not name. As night falls in our tale, the street comes alive with omens, birds falling dead from the sky, wells turning brackish, and dreams where the missing called from beneath the soil. But enough teasing, my shadowed companions. The hour grows late, and the tale beckons. Lean closer to the flame, for in the flickering light, truths emerge from the dark. What follows is not for the faint of heart. It is a descent into the hollow, where families vanish and nightmares take root. If you feel a chill, know that it's not the wind, it's the breath of those who were taken, brushing against your ear. Stay with me, as we unravel the haunting enigma of Hollow Street. Now let us step through the threshold into the heart of the narrative. The year is 1953, a time when the world balanced on the knife, edge of progress and paranoia. Whispering pines slumbered under a canopy of ancient pines, their needles sighing secrets to the wind. Hollow Street curved like a serpent's spine, its 6 homes standing sentinel against the encroaching wilderness. It was here, in the waning days of summer, that the first threads of the tapestry began to fray. Our story begins with Elias Miller, the patriarch whose mill ground the town's grain into sustenance. Elias was a man forged in the fires of the Great Depression, his hands calloused, his faith unyielding. He rose before dawn each day, his boots echoing on the wooden floors as he roused his family for prayers. Abigail, his wife, moved like a ghost through the kitchen, her apron stained with the ghosts of meals past. Their children, young Tommy, aged 10, with his freckled curiosity Sarah, 8, who collected fireflies in jars, little Ben, 5, always clutching a ragged bear, and infant Eliza, whose cries pierced the night like omens, filled the home with the chaos of life. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in bruises of purple and red, Elias gathered his family around the dinner table. The air was thick with the scent of roasted venison and apple pie, steam rising like spirits from the plates. "We give thanks," Elias intoned, his voice a rumble, "for the bounties of this hollowed ground." But as he spoke, a shadow flitted across the window, a shape too elongated to be human, too fleeting to be dismissed as imagination. Abigail shivered, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. "Did you see that, Elias?" she whispered, her eyes wide as saucers. He dismissed it with a grunt, attributing it to the tricks of twilight, but Tommy, ever the bold one, pressed his nose to the glass. "It looked like a man," he said, but stretched thin, like taffy pulled too far. The family laughed uneasily, but the seed of unease was planted. Across the street, in the Hargrove residence, Theodore pored over his ledgers by lamplight. His wife, Eleanor, knitted in the corner, her needles clicking like bones. Their 2 sons, grown and distant, had long since left for the city, leaving the house echoing with absence. Theodore's obsession was the town's history, a chronicle of floods, feuds, and forgotten graves. That night, as he turned a page yellowed with age, he found an entry from 1789, "The hollow claims its due. 6 bloodlines bound, lest the old hunger awaken." His glasses slipped down his nose as he read on, the words blurring in the flickering light. "What old hunger? And why 6? Eleanor glanced up, her face pale. "Theo, come to bed. Those books are dust and dreams." But he couldn't shake the chill, the way the ink seemed to wreathe on the page. Next door, the Whitmans' home resonated with music. Harold Whitman strummed his guitar, his voice a baritone croon that masked the cracks in his marriage. Lydia, his wife, danced with their daughter, Clara, 12, whose laughter was a fragile thing. But lately, Harold's songs had turned somber, melodies that evoked burial dirges rather than love ballads. "Something's in the air," he confided to Lydia that night as they lay in bed. "Like the strings are tuned to a frequency I can't quite hear." She hushed him, but in the dark, she felt it too, a vibration under the floorboards, as if the earth itself hummed a lullaby of dread. The Lanes mansion loomed largest, its towers piercing the sky like accusatory fingers. Matilda Lane, widow and collector extraordinaire, wandered her halls, fingering amulets and talismans. Her son, Reginald, a brooding scholar, assisted in cataloguing her treasures. That evening, as they unpacked a new crate from Europe, a relic said to be from a cursed abbey, Matilda gasped. Inside lay a mirror, its surface etched with runes, reflecting not their faces but distorted shadows that whispered names: Miller, Hargrove, Wickman. "Mother," Reginald breathed, "what have you brought into our home?" She waved him off, but her hands trembled as she locked it away. The Pattersons kept to themselves, their home a fortress of solitude. Elias Patterson, the artist, smeared paint across canvas in his attic studio, his wife Greta brewing herbal teas below. Their only child, young Finn, 7, sketched in corners, his drawings mirroring his father's nightmares, figures rising from the ground, mouths agape in silent screams. That night, Elias awoke sweating from a dream where the street sank into the earth, swallowing homes whole. "It's coming," he muttered to Greta, who pulled the covers tighter. Finally, the Eversons, the outsiders. Victor and his sister, Helena, had arrived months prior. Their accents thick with Eastern European fog, they spoke little to neighbors, but rumors swirled of their lineage, descendants of nobility fleeing wars and worse. In their parlor, surrounded by locked trunks, Victor pored over a family grimoire. "The curse follows," he said to Helena, his voice low. "6 families, bound by blood spilled long ago." She nodded, her eyes haunted by memories of ancestral halls echoing with ghosts. As the days blurred into weeks, the anomalies mounted. Birds ceased singing over Hollow Street, their nests abandoned mid-hatch. Wells drew water tinned with rust, tasting of copper and regret. Children reported dreams of the Hollow Man, a figure who beckoned from basements, promising secrets in exchange for silence. Tommy Miller was the first to act on curiosity. One afternoon, while exploring the woods behind the street, he found a cave mouth yawning in the hillside, a hollow not marked on any map. Peering inside, he heard voices faint, overlapping whispers calling names. He fled, heart pounding, but told no one, lest he be scolded for wandering. Theodore Hargrove delved deeper into his archives, uncovering a pattern. Every 50 years, anomalies plagued the town. In 1803, livestock vanished. In 1853, a fever claimed select families. In 1903, unexplained fires razed homes, always tied to the hollow, always sick threads in the web. Harold Whitman's music took a turn. His guitar strings snapped one by one during a solo, drawing blood. Lydia found Clara sleepwalking toward the street's center, murmuring, "They wait below." Matilda's mirror began to fog at odd hours, revealing glimpses of faces not their own, ancestors perhaps, or harbingers. Reginald smashed it, but the shards reformed overnight. Elias Patterson's paintings, blood, colors running like tears. Finn's sketches animated in the wind, figures crawling across paper. Victor Everson confronted the group one stormy evening, gathering the patriarchs in the Miller home. "We are linked," he declared, unfolding a map dotted with bloodlines. Our forebears sealed a pact in 1789, binding 6 families to contain what lies beneath. The hollow hungers every cycle, and now it calls. Skepticism met his words, but doubt crept in like fog. Elias Miller scoffed. Theodore nodded thoughtfully. Harold strummed nervously. As thunder rolled, the ground trembled, a subtle quake that rattled china and souls. Little did they know the vanishing was nigh. The children felt it first: Tommy, Sarah, Ben, Eliza, Clara, Finn. They gathered in secret, sharing tales of the hollow man. He says we belong to him, Sarah whispered, her jar of fireflies glowing unnaturally bright. As night enveloped Hollow Street, doors creaked open of their own accord, candles ignited without matches, and in the basements, floorboards groaned, revealing cracks that exhaled cold breath. The stage was set, my listeners. The families teetered on the brink, unaware that the hollow beneath their feet was no mere depression, but a maw waiting to devour. The tension coiled tighter as autumn's grip strengthened, leaves turning blood, red and carpeting Hollow Street like a shroud. The families, once isolated in their routines, now intersected in paranoia's web. Whispers traveled house to house, carried on winds that smelled of damp earth and decay. Elias Miller, ever the stoic, barred his doors earlier each night, but sleep evaded him. Visions plagued his dreams, his children sinking into the ground, hands grasping at air as soil filled their mouths. Abigail noticed the changes in her offspring. Tommy grew pallid, his eyes ringed with shadows. The hollow man visits me, he confessed one dawn, as mist clung to the windows like spectral fingers. He says our blood is the key. Abigail hushed him, but her prayers faltered, words sticking in her throat like thorns. Theodore Hargrove's research consumed him. In his attic, surrounded by towers of tomes, he pieced together the puzzle. The founding of Whispering Pines wasn't on virgin land. It overlaid an ancient burial mound, desecrated by settlers. 6 families, ancestors of the current residents, had performed a ritual, binding their lines to seal the site. The hollow is a prison, he wrote in trembling script, and we are the locks. Every 50 years, it tests the chains. Eleanor begged him to stop, but he pressed on, sharing findings with Victor Everson. The 2 men met in secret, poring over the grimoire. My family fled Europe for this, Victor revealed, his accent thickening with emotion. The curse originated in the old world, an entity born of war and famine, feeding on bloodlines. Our forebears brought it here, thinking the new land would dilute it. Meanwhile, Harold Whitman's home became a cacophony of discord. His guitar, once a source of joy, now emitted dissonant chords that set teeth on edge. Lydia found Clara carving symbols into her arms, runes matching those in Matilda's collection. It itches inside, Clara sobbed, blood welling like ink. Harold confronted Matilda, storming her mansion. Your trinkets are poisoning us, he accused. Matilda, frail but defiant, retorted, they protect. Without them, the hollow would have claimed us sooner. Reginald Lane, witnessing the exchange, delved into his mother's artifacts. He discovered a journal from 1903 detailing similar omens, families vanishing, only to reappear in dreams of the living. They don't die, the entry read. They descend, becoming part of the hunger. The Pattersons withdrew further, barricading windows. Elias's paintings evolved, depicting the street as a gaping mouth, families tumbling into teeth of roots and stone. Greta brewed potions from forbidden herbs, but Finn's condition worsened. He spoke in tongues, voices not his own echoing from his small frame. 6 for the seal, 6 for the meal, he intoned, eyes rolling back. Helena Everson, Victor's sister, took to wandering the street at night, her shawl trailing like a phantom. She claimed to hear the entity's voice, a sibilant his promising reunion with lost kin. It offers eternity, she told Victor, her face alight with mad fervor. As the equinox approached, portents intensified. Cracks spiderwebbed across foundations, exhaling fetid air. Animals avoided the street, even insects fled. The children, drawn by an invisible thread, met in the hollow's shadow. Tommy led them to the cave, where whispers grew to murmurs. Join us, the voices coaxed. Sarah's fireflies escaped their jar, forming luminous shapes that danced toward the darkness. The adults convened in desperation. Elias hosted, the group circling the table like conspirators. Theodore laid out the history, Victor the ritual. "We must reinforce the seal," Victor urged. Blood from each family spilled at the Hollow's heart. Skepticism warred with fear. Harold agreed reluctantly. Matilda provided a dagger etched with wards. Elias Patterson, silent till then, nodded. "My visions show no other way." They ventured out under a moonless sky, lanterns casting jittery pools of light. The street felt alive, pavement undulating subtly. At the cave's mouth, now wider, like a yawn, they formed a circle. Victor chanted words from the grimoire, ancient syllables that twisted the air. Each patriarch pricked a finger, dripping blood onto the earth. For a moment, peace descended. The hum ceased, shadows retreated. They returned home hopeful. But dawn brought horror. Abigail woke to empty beds, her children gone. Screams echoed down the street, Clara missing, Finn vanished. The Everson trunks overturned with Helena absent. Panic reigned. Searchers combed woods and homes, but the children had slipped away, drawn to the hollow. In the cave, they found drawings on walls, stick figures descending into abyss. Night fell again heavier. The adults, fractured, argued blame. Elias accused Victor of treachery. Harold wept openly. Theodore discovered a betrayal. Matilda's mirror had been a conduit, amplifying the call. As midnight struck, the ground quaked. Basements flooded with soil, walls crumbling. The families gathered involuntarily, pulled toward the street's center. One by one, they vanished. Elias Miller, reaching for Abigail, sank as earth parted. The Hargroves clutched ledgers as shadows enveloped them. Whitman's screams harmonized with the wind. Lane's artifacts shattered, releasing bursts of light. Patterson's painted final strokes in air. Everson's whispered farewells in forgotten tongues. By morning, silence, homes intact but empty. The hollow had claimed its due, yet echoes lingered, whispers in wind, shadows in corners. The enigma persisted, a wound unhealed. To truly grasp the chill of Hollow Street, we must unearth the roots from which this nightmare sprouted. History, my listeners, is not a sterile chronicle but a living entity pulsating with the blood of the past. Whispering Pines, like many New England towns, stands on layers of conquest and concealment, where European settlers imposed their will upon lands steeped in indigenous lore. Let us delve into this tapestry, blending fact with the folklore that clings like ivy to crumbling stones. The land of Vermont, once the domain of the Abenaki people, was a place of spiritual reverence. The Abenaki spoke of the hollow places, natural depressions where the veil between worlds thinned. These were not mere geographical quirks, but portals to the underworld, guarded by spirits called the Pokwajis. In some Algonquian tales, mischievous beings that lured the unwary into eternal wanderings. When settlers arrived in the late 18th century, driven by revolutionary zeal and land grants, they dismissed these warnings as savage superstition. In 1789, the year Whispering Pines was charted, surveyors noted the hollow basin, but built over it, naming the street for its peculiar topography. Historical records from the Vermont State Archives reveal the founding families, precursors to our six, engaged in hasty rituals to bless the land. Diaries of settler Josiah Whitman, ancestor to Harold, describe a midnight gathering. "We spilled blood upon the earth to bind it to our will, lest the old gods reclaim what we have taken." This echoes European folk traditions imported by immigrants, blood pacts from Celtic Druidism, where life essence sealed bargains with the land spirits. The 19th century brought industrialization, with mills like Elias Miller's grinding progress from the wilderness. But anomalies persisted. In 1803, during the Jeffersonian era, livestock vanished en masse, attributed to wolves but whispered as the Hollow's tithe. Newspapers of the time, such as the Burlington Gazette, reported strange sinkholes swallowing beasts whole, tying into broader American folklore of bottomless pits, like those in Kentucky's Mammoth Cave system seen as gateways to hell. By 1853, amid the gold rush fever, a mysterious illness struck Whispering Pines, selectively afflicting 6 families. Medical logs from the era describe symptoms pallor, hallucinations of figures from below, and eventual disappearance. This mirrors the westing sickness in Appalachian legends, where mountain hollows harbored entities feeding on human vitality. Cultural anthropologists note parallels to European vampire myths, but rooted in Native American concepts of Wendigo, a hunger spirit born of isolation and cannibalism. Though here adapted to collective vanishing, the turn of the 20th century amplified the eerie. In 1903, during the Progressive Era, unexplained fires razed homes on Hollow Street, yet valuables remained unscathed. Insurance reports spoke of spontaneous combustion from subterranean gases, but locals invoked the fire devils of folklore, elemental beings angered by encroachment. This period saw a surge in spiritualism, with seances in nearby towns attempting to contact the lost. Mediums like those in Lilydale, New York, claimed communications from hollow dwellers, describing eternal limbo beneath the earth. Culturally, these events intersect with broader American traumas. The post-revolutionary displacement of indigenous peoples created a national guilt, manifesting in ghost stories where the land itself rebels. Edgar Allan Poe's tales of premature burial and H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horrors drew from such New England soil, portraying the ground as alive and malevolent. Lovecraft, writing in the 1920s, often referenced buried things in Vermont hills inspired by real vanishing cases like the Bennington Triangle disappearances 1945-1950, where people evaporated without trace in wooded hollows. Folklore blends seamlessly. The Irish banshees wail echoes in the Abenakis' wind spirits, German doppelgangers in the mirror visions of Matilda's artifacts. Immigrant waves brought these. Everson's Eastern European roots evoke Slavic, domovoi, house spirits turned vengeful when displaced. In the 1950s context of our tale, Cold War paranoia amplified isolation. McCarthyism's witch hunts mirrored historical Salem trials 1692, where accusations led to vanishings into prisons or graves. Whispering Pine's story reflects this: families bound by secrets, vanishing amid suspicion. Real cases like the Sodder children disappearance 1945, West Virginia, 5 siblings gone in a fire, no remains, fuel similar enigmas, blending arson suspicions with supernatural whispers. Educational yet eerie, this context reveals Hollow Street as no anomaly but a culmination. The hollow, perhaps a karst formation geologically, symbolizes cultural voids, erased indigenous histories, suppressed immigrant traumas, buried settler sins, legends of ghost roads in Vermont folklore, paths where travelers vanish, parallel our street, suggesting a liminal space where past and present collide. As we sift through these layers, feel the weight of authenticity. The enigma isn't fabricated, it's woven from threads of real terror, where history's ghosts haunt the living. The 6 families, mere vessels for an ancient rite, their disappearance an echo of forgotten pacts. In this blend of fact and folklore, the unsettling truth emerges. The hollow waits, patient as stone, for the next cycle. Now, as the shadows lengthen in our minds, let us probe the marrow of this tale, the symbolic sinews and psychological phantoms that bind the enigma of Hollow Street. This is no superficial shiver, it is a dissection of the human condition where universal fears intertwine with cultural scars, all under an ominous pall. We explore not just what happened, but why it haunts us, echoing in the chambers of our collective psyche. At its core, the disappearance embodies the terror of erasure, the sudden void where life once pulsed. Psychologically, this taps into abandonment anxiety, a primal fear rooted in evolutionary biology, the dread of being left behind by the tribe, vulnerable to the wild. Freud might call it the uncanny, that familiar turns strange, the homes intact yet empty, evoking a domesticity desecrated. In Hollow Street, the family's vanishing leaves artifacts of normalcy, steaming coffee, humming toys. This dissonance amplifies horror, as Jungian shadows emerge, the repressed aspects of self, manifesting as the Orlo man, a doppelganger of our buried guilts. Thematically, family as a cursed institution looms large. The 6 bloodlines represent interconnectedness turned toxic, a web where one sins ensnare all. This mirrors societal traumas, generational curses in literature, like Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, where family homes devour descendants. In our story, the Pact of 1789 symbolizes colonial inheritance, settlers' theft of land, passing down not wealth, but debt to the dispossessed. Culturally, this connects to America's original sin, indigenous displacement, where the hollow becomes a metaphor for the void left by genocide filled with vengeful spirits. Human nature's hubris shines through the belief we can bind the unknown. Victor's ritual, Matilda's artifacts, attempts to control chaos, yet they backfire, unleashing the hunger. This echoes Prometheus myths, stealing fire only to be devoured eternally. Psychologically, it's denial, Elias's piety masking fear, Theodore's research as intellectual armor. Yet the entity prevails, suggesting nature's indifference to human constructs. Universal fears of the subterranean amplify this. The hollow evokes burial alive, a phobia tapping claustrophobia and mortality. From Poe's casks to modern sinkhole horrors, underground realms symbolize the subconscious, repressed memories bubbling up. In Hollow Street, the ground hums, pulling families down, reflecting fears of instability, economic post-depression mills, social Cold War paranoia, personal family secrets. The children's role adds layers of innocence corrupted. Tommy, Clara, Finn, drawn first, they represent purity sacrificed to ancestral sins. This ties to cultural trauma fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel, where woods or hollows consume the young. Psychologically, it's the loss of future, a nihilistic dread that our legacies end in void. Symbolically, the number 6 recurs families, cycles every 50 years. Numerologically, 6 evokes imperfection, 1 short of 7's divinity, or hexagons in nature, hives, crystals, suggesting a geometric trap. In folklore, 6 is witchy hex signs, 6 pointed stars warding evil. Here, it's a seal broken, unleashing chaos. Connecting to broader human nature, the story probes isolation vs. community. Hollow Street's families, proximate yet divided, only unite too late. This mirrors modern alienation, suburbs hiding horrors, as in Stephen King's works. The Enigma questions what binds us, blood or choice. The hunger feeds on division, suggesting unity as antidote, yet futile, adding tragic irony. Ominously, it explores the allure of the unknown. Helena's fervor, the children's curiosity, a death drive frodes Thanatos, pulling toward dissolution. Culturally, this echoes Lovecraftian cosmicism, insignificance before ancient forces. The hollow isn't malevolent, it's indifferent. Avoid consuming because it must. Thematically, mirrors and reflections recur. Matilda's artifact, Wells's mirrors. Symbolizing self-confrontation, they reveal distorted truths, ancestral guilts, hidden selves. In analysis, this is narcissism's flip, not vanity, but horror at one's reflection, tying to cultural mirrors like Narcissus myths or vampire lore, no reflection, eternal hunger. Finally, the tale interrogates memory's persistence, the vanished echo in whispers suggesting immortality through haunting. Psychologically, this is trauma's legacy, unresolved grief manifesting as ghosts. Culturally, it's how societies remember atrocities, through stories, lest they repeat. In this exploration, Hollow Street becomes a mirror for us, our fears of vanishing, our chains to the past, our hunger for meaning in the void. It leaves us pondering, are we the families teetering on the edge? Or the hollow, ever hungry? As our journey through the mists of Hollow Street draws to its inexorable close, let the echoes reverberate in the silence of your thoughts. We have traversed the shadowed lanes, unearthed the bones of history, and gazed into the abyss of the human soul. The 6 families, Miller, Hargrove, Whitman, Lane, Patterson, Everson, slipped into the hollow's embrace, leaving behind an enigma that defies resolution. Were they devoured by an ancient entity, bound by blood pacts long forgotten? Or did they descend willingly, lured by promises whispered from the earth? Picture it one last time. The street now abandoned, homes sagging under the weight of years, windows like vacant eyes staring into eternity. Investigators came and went, their reports filed away in dusty archives, attributing the vanishings to mass hysteria or elopement. But locals know better. On moonless nights, They swear lights flicker in those windows, shadows dance where no one treads. Children, generations removed, still whisper of the hollow man, his elongated form beckoning from the woods. This tale lingers because it mirrors our own fragilities, the thin crust of normalcy over chasms of the unknown. In whispering pines, the hollow remains a basin pooling not water but secrets. Perhaps the families endure below, woven into the entity's fabric. Their voice is the hum that vibrates through the soil. Or maybe they escape to some liminal realm, free from the chains of blood and history. Yet, the question that haunts most, could it happen again? The cycle ticks onward. 50 years from 1953 brings us to 2003, when whispers stirred anew in the town, unexplained absences brushed aside. And now, in our present, the clock winds toward the next. Listen closely, my listeners. Do you hear the hum? Feel the ground shift subtly beneath your feet. Throne of Nightmares bids you farewell. But remember, the dark doesn't end with the episode. It follows you into the night, a companion in the quiet hours. If you walk a hollow street, tread lightly, lest the earth claim its due. Sleep well, if you can, for in the silence, the vanished call your name.